I really didn't want to make this video. I really didn't. All I wanted to do was play this RPG in peace and quiet and be immersed. But all that was brought to a screeching halt by Act 3 and I just had to talk about it or risk losing my mind. First, I want to say I really like the game, okay? I feel like I have to say this because apparently anyone who dares criticize any aspect of this game is being targeted by the fanboy mafia. What, you didn't enjoy constantly seeing the version number of the game? You should go back to playing EA games. Bringing up that certain quests are borked?
Go back where you came from!
It's like my nerd license is coming into question or something for simply pointing out issues, which is kinda ironic seeing as how most of these people didn't even reach Act 3 to begin with. Oh, but I'm the FIFA player Call of Duty kid that doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay. So with that out the way, let's get into it. Act 1 and 2 were very smooth for me. My FPS stayed between 110 to 100 in the more demanding areas, so I went ahead and limited my FPS at 110 and everything was perfect. I could have locked it at a higher value, like let's say 120, but the flux capacitor fluctuated too much like it does in Act 3, so I opted for the middle ground. Now what's weird is if you go search for other videos on Baldur's Gate performance and optimizations and stuff, you can't find anything substantial. The best you can find is optimization videos using Act 1 and calling that a test. No, go to Act 3 and test that mess. It's been what, 13 days since the release? You would think that people got to Act 3 by now, but no, and I can't help but think that at least in small part this is due to the fact that people are nervous to talk about it. They'd rather do the 100th class overview video than address some of these issues and bring a positive change to the game, probably because they're smarter than me and know how ravenous the fan base is. So Act 1 and Act 2 ran perfectly, but once you reach Act 3, all that goes out the window because the FPS starts fluctuating all over the place. I'm not even gonna mention the increase in the amount of bugs I encountered. I'm past that, okay? But tell me, why does every game nowadays, especially CRPGs, isometric classical style RPG, whatever you wanna call them, first part is optimized and then the later half gets completely forgotten and it takes a year to get patched up. Same thing happened to Pathfinder Kingmaker, same with Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. Pillars wasn't that bad, but it still needed a lot of bug fixes, and Divinity Original Sin 2 was a mess when it came out in its later part, so maybe it's a Larian Studio tradition to half-ass it. I mean, Jesus Christ, we give Bethesda a hard time for how messed up their games are, but I played Fallout 4 day 1 when that came out, and it was better than Baldur's Gate 3 Act 3. Sure, it was limited at 60 FPS, but it was a hell of a lot smoother than this. I could actually play that. Oh, but Baldur's Gate 3 is game of the millennia. Sure, dude, whatever. And speaking of 60 FPS, I'm not one of these snobs that wants their game to be locked at 110 FPS in 4K. I'm playing this game in the year of our Lord 1440, and I would lock it at 60 if I could. I just don't need all that extra stuff. But unfortunately that doesn't solve the problem, because whatever you lock the FPS at, it will dip lower than that, just to spite you. Maybe people in the 80s were right about D&D, cause this game is possessed. And yes, I'm playing this game on max settings, but again, if I lower them, it doesn't change all that much, and the fluctuations still happen, which defeats the purpose. And besides, I shouldn't have to, considering my 4090 is redundant for 1440 gaming, and I shouldn't have worse performance here than in Cyberpunk with psycho ray tracing and everything maxed, so there's clearly a problem with optimization in this game. I can't even imagine what other people are going through. Some people are getting extremely bad performance on last gen hardware, which is simply unacceptable. They ironed out all of Act 1 and Act 2 and completely forgot about Act 3, which is incredibly sad considering we finally get to Baldur's Gate, you know, the title of the damn game. Only I can't savor it cause the game takes an Amber Heard and subverts my expectations. And I know a big patch is supposed to be coming soon, but after years of early access, it still feels like I've paid money to be a tester for this game. I don't know if this is because they rushed it 1 month early because they didn't want to compete with Starfield, or they simply didn't care about Act 3 and adopted the beloved tradition of gaming companies of patching it as we go.
Sometimes
It doesn't just work.
All I care is that it soured my experience and I will never get another first impression of the game. I didn't touch early access because I wanted to save myself for the full release. Might as well save myself for Mike Tyson. But I always try to come up with some constructive criticism in my videos, so let's see. What solutions are there? There are none. It's over. Okay. Let's see. In case the almighty gods decide to bless me and have a developer actually see this video, spoiler warning. For the player, not the developer. My problems started immediately at the end of Act 2, right before leaving the Act 2 area actually. After I defeated Ketheric and I was yakking it up with my friends in his castle, the FPS dropped in the exact area even though before I had 110 FPS. So maybe something is happening with the save files, or maybe choices we make affect performance, a memory leak, I don't know. But it's worth taking a look. And another reason for the poor performance might be the way the game deals with draw distance. Texture pop-ins are off the charts in Act 3. Just in this area alone, if I move a couple of meters this way, textures get messed up over here. If I move a bit, textures get messed up over there. And all this playing around with textures on the engine part might have something to do with the bad performance, especially since I notice frame drops when I move and not when I stand still. I also doubt the NPCs are the problem, as some have said, because we didn't have this problem in the Grove or the Goblin Camp. But if that's the problem, just remove some of these fat hobbits and we'll call it a day.
Nobody has the balls to come out and say it and just say, look, 85% of you have to go.
Another thing I've noticed is if I leave my companions in my camp, performance slightly improves, but it still fluctuates, so it doesn't really help. But it is something to note. I suspect it's because the engine starts over-calculating all the different effects and stats and lighting and stuff. But again, I didn't have this issue in Act 1 or 2, so what the hell? Now you might want to deal with the texture pop-ins and draw distance, but also, might I suggest adding some fog effects or changing how the light looks in Act 3? It will make things look better and it might obscure some distant textures which you can tone down or fix or whatever, because lighting feels blander here than in Act 1, and especially compared to Act 2. The temple in Act 2 looked incredible, the lighting felt much more natural, polished you might say, and I spent a lot of my time here just enjoying the scenery. Compare this to Act 3 where I can only describe it as baked. You should know this by now, but never go for this middle of the day overly exposed look in your game. You don't do this in movies, and you especially don't do this in video games. Even in real life things look worse with direct sunlight on top of them. It's just ugly. As for helping gamers deal with the issues until the devs fix it, there's not that much that you can do. But here are some tips that I found online that might work for you. Emphasis on might, but probably not. This is the only tutorial that tells you it's probably not gonna work, but here goes. First, you might want to stop the launcher from starting with the game. You do this by adding this into your Steam Games, Game Library, Baldur's Gate, Properties, Launch Options, and then closing this thing. You might try and change from DirectX 11 to Vulkan.
Live long and prosper.
See if that improves anything. You might want to go ahead and disable dynamic crowds, which my dumbass can't notice any visual difference, but whatever. And whatever you do, don't follow the official troubleshoot, because you will brick your game. Because not only is their game possessed, the priest is in on it too. I did some of this stuff and it broke my game. Had to reinstall the thing 2 times, and only got it fixed by playing around with Vulkan and then going back to DirectX 11. Again, just don't bother. You might also want to change the instance distance, basically draw distance. Might help, it won't. My only actual help for people is moral support. It's not you, it's the game. Your hardware, if you're running anything from 2080 or 3060 upwards, it's good. You can rest assured that your rig isn't the problem. Trust me, I've been obsessively reading forums and researching this issue for the past 2 days now, and everyone is having problems. Don't believe the 1 or 2 muppets out there claiming they're running Act 3 in 140 FPS on a 1070 and having a blast. Don't, just leave the crackheads be, okay? So that's the gist of this video. I hope you enjoyed my pain, and hopefully Starfield will run better. I have to have lost my mind. Ooh, this is an unpolished, horrible performing game. But maybe Bethesda will come and save me. No, Sam, the Eagles are not coming. We're doomed. I can't believe people are hyped so much for that game. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not suffering from amnesia. I remember Fallout 76, that absolute dream-killing, reputation-destroying, money-hungry garbage. Starfield could be a great game, or a complete, just putrid, Nurgle-infested bleh. Only time will tell. As for this game, it's a great game, fantastic even, but it has issues even outside the performance and bugs. So just to completely piss off everybody, D&D is stupid.
Let me finish!
In that 5th edition is stupid. It simplified stuff to such an extent that it just feels kinda empty to me compared to older editions. Take Pathfinder for example. Yes, you do need to watch an online tutorial just to understand how all of this works, but creating and tailoring your character is part of the fun, at least for me. Going through all of this stuff is fun and enjoyable. And I enjoy all this nerdy stuff. Nowadays, everything has to be streamlined and lightning fast.
I don't work with lightning. I hate it. I work with all this other shit.
But hey, this is coming from a guy that appreciates boxier cars, like a Lada, compared to all this modern stuff that looks like driving around in a soap dish. But I've rambled enough. Please, if any developers actually see this video, leave everything and fix the performance of Act 3. Leave all the horny druids and disturbingly flirty companions be, and focus all your resources on fixing performance in Act 3 before the majority of your players get the same sour taste experience that I got. This game deserves better. We deserve better. Faerun deserves better. And it should be your top priority. Anyways, that's it. That's the end of my rant video.
You've had enough. Now go. Quickly. Yes.